Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Homesteading McGuyver. Today I'm going to show you a common problem that you have with cars when you have aftermarket wheels, which is broken lug nuts or broken lug nut studs. So if you want to zoom in here, this one is broken. We just got new tires put on the car, and when that one right there, when they went to either tighten it or untighten it, anyway, the cheap aftermarket lug nuts galled on the threads and destroyed that stud. So you can see we only have 3. We're gonna take these off. We're gonna loosen these while the car's on the ground. Take these off, pull the wheel off, and see if we can replace that stud. I'm gonna show you guys how that works. Okay, so this is the component that we're gonna be replacing today. And what's damaged on this one is these threads right here. So this portion with these knurled lines on it, these lines are just a small bit bigger than the opening of the hole in the actual rotor. So when you pull this into the hole, these kind of crush and get stuck, basically a weld without actually welding into the rotor. The way that happens, we're going to put the stud through the rotor. We're going to put the lug nut on. We're going to start to tighten it. As we tighten it down and it compresses on the wheel, it's going to pull these threads into that hole. So you don't need a special tool to do this, and we'll show you guys how to do that in a second. And remember, kids, when you're jacking up a car, remember to set your e-brake before you get the car in the air. Safety first.
New tires. You see that?
Mm-hmm. There you go, buddy. Go. Okay, so what we have here is a broken stud. So there's about 1/4 of an inch broken off the stud. So we are going to, this is not accessible from here, from this point. So what we have to do, because it's not accessible from any point behind that rotor, we're going to depress the caliper, or depress the brake pads, pull the caliper off, and then we're going to pull this rotor off, and we're going to knock that stud out and replace it. Okay, so we are going to take our flathead screwdriver, and we are going to stick it in here. So we're trying to get it between the rotor and the pad, and we're going to apply leverage in that hole between the rotor and the pad. There we go. So we're going to apply leverage in there, either on the front or on the back. When we apply leverage, it's going to depress the piston on the caliper. In this case, we're going to have to use the front. You ready?
Oh, that's good. There we go. Yeah.
Okay. So as I apply leverage, you knocked the phone. As I apply leverage and try and kill my phone,
okay,
you can see the caliper start to depress. So what you're doing is you're depressing that hydraulic piston in there. We'll show you what that looks like in a second. All right, so on a 2007 Chevy Cobalt, the caliper bolts are 14 mil, so get you a standard 14 mil on a 3/8 ratchet. Loosen those bolts. Before you break off and loosen up the second caliper bolt, keep your other one in, because if you try and undo the bolt, your caliper is going to start flopping around. Normally that comes into play when you're trying to tighten it, but either or, make sure you keep a bolt in until you get both bolts loose, like so, and then start to remove your caliper bolts. 1 and 2. Gently tuck your caliper out of the way. Like shown. And we're going to pull off these bolts back here and remove our pads. Actually, we can pull that cradle. In this case, we can pull the cradle without taking the pads out. So we're just going to bust those loose and take that off. All right, so on a 2007 Chevy Cobalt, your caliper bracket bolts are 15, not a 14. But same thing, before you get them all the way off, keep both caliper bolts in and undo the other one. So one thing to keep in mind when you're trying to get this bolt out, if you are using a ratchet, loosen this bolt and then take your ratchet off and take the bolt off by hand, because right now we have a problem. The ratchet and the socket combination are too tall and they get stuck underneath this bolt right here in the strut arrangement. So loosen the bolt and then take your ratchet off and then undo the bolt by hand. All right, so we're taking that caliper bracket off. We're going to do a quick pad inspection while we're here. If you want to put that in the light, we can. So we're going to do a quick pad inspection. These pads still have their fresh lines in them, so looks pretty good here.
Yep.
Okay. So there is our rotor off, and I made a mistake actually earlier thinking that these went through the rotor like on an old school style Chevy. They actually go through the wheel hub assembly. So we are going to knock this one out and put the new one in.
Okay.
All right, so to aid in installation and not having to remove your wheel hub assembly, it is acceptable to grind a small portion of this shoulder or the head of this stud flat so that it clears the edge of the wheel hub assembly mounting bracket and can be installed into the wheel hub assembly. Again, this is not advice. You do this at your own risk, but the professional tire shops will grind the side of that head off to install it and not do the other labor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have the stud installed. As you can see, this is our brand new stud. We are going to put the brakes back together and put the rotor back on, and we're going to put the tire back on. And when we tighten the lug nut on the wheel, it will pull that stud into place and lock it in place.
Okay, so you just had that wrench thing in your hand.
This one?
Nope.
This one.
Yes, and that's got a regular tube thing at the end.
A regular
Right.
socket. It is a 21 millimeter socket.
Right, and the brand new bolt and nut that I gave you, you were
Yes.
just using just the socket wrench and the nut. You didn't need a key, but it looked like for the other three things you needed a key.
Correct. So for this lug nut, since it's an aftermarket lug nut,
Uh-huh.
I had you pick it up from the auto parts.
Yes.
It is a different style lug nut. So this one is smooth on the sides. These are what are called security lug nuts. They're not very secure. All it means, a security lug nut, is you have to have a special type of key or socket
Okay.
to get it off. So here's the thing. This is flat on the side, so it takes a flat standard socket.
Yeah.
This is splined, so it's round, but it's got 5 splines cut in it. And
Yeah.
sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less. But you have to have a corresponding key to that, because if you don't have the corresponding key, it won't go in there. When you have the right key.
Okay.
Tip. Without using your tire or your wheel to tighten this, you can put your rotor on some of these. Go ahead and run your lug nut on. You may have enough material on your rotor to go ahead and tighten that lug nut and lock it into place where it's supposed to be, or lug stud rather. So you may have enough to get the stud locked in place.
Spider, we're good.
Like so. You are ready to put your brakes back together and put your wheel and tire back on. Remember, boys and girls, after working on your brake system, be sure to press your brake pedal several times before driving your vehicle. This message is brought to you by Texas Joe and the Council for letting natural selection do its job. Thank you guys. Thank you. Hope you guys are enjoying the videos. And hey, until next time, this is Texas Joe saying, just go ahead and let natural selection do its thing and call the week. Y'all have a great day. See you on the next one.